Hey there guys, Artistic Nick here, thanks for the click. In today's photorealism drawing, I've been quite excited about doing this. It's almost a year to the day since I really started doing any type of YouTube videos, and my first YouTube video, one of my first drawings that I did was actually of Morgan Freeman, which is this one here. This was when I was learning some of the skills that I've developed, and I use charcoal and cotton buds and all kinds of things on this. So what I thought I'd do is I'd do a sort of a year-on comparison. So I've picked another photo of Morgan Freeman. It's a slightly different angle, but I really like this one. I like the tones and the reflections. So I just thought that I'd do this, and we'll have a look at the differences between the two, and just see how much I've improved over the year. So it's now December in 2017, and I think my first upload to YouTube, which was the Morgan Freeman picture that I just showed you, was in November 2016. So I'm going to time lapse this as always. I'm going to start off with my 4H pencil. These are the Caran D'ache grafwood pencils, and I'm going to go for all of the darkest areas. I'll keep checking in every now and then just to show you the progression and if I'm moving on, and hopefully we'll see a huge difference at the end. See you soon. So, as in all of my portrait work, I start with a 4H pencil. A 4H pencil is a very hard pencil, and it goes on very lightly onto the page. I'm looking at the darkest areas of this picture, and I'm starting to build those up gradually. I will then move to a 2H pencil. Now, there's a reason that I start with such a light pencil. Some of you might be thinking that you'd need to start with an HB or even a 2B. Each piece of paper has something called a tooth to it. It's not completely flat. You don't want it to be completely flat. Now, if you use the softer pencils straight away, what tends to happen is you start to see the tooth of the paper coming through the graphite. So what ends up happening is you have these sort of lighter areas where the graphite isn't able to get down as low. What you tend to do is you scrape over the top of the tooth of the paper, and that ends up being darker. And what happens is your drawing starts to look a little bit patchy. There's some fantastic art out there that uses the tooth of the paper in this way, and that's something that they're looking for. But ever since I started drawing seriously about a year and a half ago, I've always strived for realism, and I love that photographic look. I love the photorealism. I love hyper-realistic drawings, and the best way to achieve this is to get as few of these sort of pitted areas, these whiter areas coming through your graphite as possible. So by building up with a very hard pencil to start with, what happens is the harder pencil, very fine particles of graphite will come off of the pencil to start with, and they start to sit lower down into the tooth of the paper. As you then work your way through the grades of pencil, you start to build a layer of graphite up, so that once you do start to get to your harder values, your harder pencils, your 2Bs and your 4Bs, it sits perfectly on top of that. The other thing that it does is it avoids something called graphite shine. Graphite's a very, very flat, structured material. So as you are starting to bear down into the graphite, it gives a shine in certain light, and some artists don't like this. I find that if you press too hard with any pencil, you do tend to get this graphite shine, but by layering the pencils with the method that I'm going through here, what you tend to find is you get less of this shine. Obviously, in the very darkest areas like the eyes and around the nostrils, there's always going to be that little bit of graphite shine, but over the general image itself, it holds up really well in most lights and from most angles. That's why a lot of artists tend to use charcoal in certain areas, because that doesn't reflect the light in the same way that graphite does. So as you can see from the drawing here, I'm reinforcing the darkest areas, but I'm also using a kneaded eraser or a putty eraser just to start taking out some of the lighter areas. So around the nose and the right hand side of the face as we're looking at it, they're the lightest areas. So I'm taking value out with the kneaded eraser or the putty eraser, and I'm going back on and putting more value on and going backwards and forwards in that sense. This allows me to build up the values in the darker area, but by still maintaining a lighter area, because in order to create realism, you really need three things. You need contrast between your light and your dark areas, so you absolutely need to be able to get some of your dark areas very dark and your lighter areas very light. Even on a face like the one that I'm drawing, which is of an African man, which tends to have dark skin, there are still lighter areas on there. The second thing that you need to do is have very smooth gradations, so going from the dark to the light in a very smooth way and going through the pencils in the 4H, 2H, HB, 2B, 4B manner will allow you to do this. The third thing you need to do is make sure that you've got a light direction and it's a consistent light direction throughout your picture. So on this drawing that I'm doing here, the light is coming from the top right. So as we're looking at the page, the light source is coming from the top right corner, which means anything on that side is going to be lighter and anything on the left hand side as we're looking at the page is going to be darker. If you can keep understanding those three elements and keep applying them to your drawings, you will start to create realism in your artwork. All of the creases in the forehead will have a light direction, so because the light's coming from top to bottom, I'm slightly shading down towards the nose rather than just drawing a line which ends up just looking like a crack. So as you can see, that the drawing is really starting to take shape now. It's getting that three-dimensional look. Like I've said before, this took me well over 30 hours. It's probably closer to 40 hours. It took me a week to draw from start to finish. So it is a long process, but I'm sure you'll agree it's worth it. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I'm really happy with it. I think it's possibly the best drawing that I've done so far. It's certainly one of the most difficult that I've drawn. There was so much detail on here. Obviously Morgan Freeman has those iconic freckles on his face. So I'm just starting with the beard now. So in this reference image, Morgan Freeman had a beard, and it's white in areas. His hair's white and grey in areas. So what I'm doing is I'm using a 2B pencil and I'm looking for the darker areas of the beard, the recesses of the hairs, and then what I'm doing is I'm starting to take out the whiter lines, the whiter hairs with a kneaded eraser, and I'm also using a mono 0 eraser as well. Again, there's a link to in the descriptions to all of the equipment that I use, right from the paper through to the erasers. So if you need to pick up some of those, there's a link there straight to the Amazon site, and I do get a small commission if you click on and buy something from there. So thank you very much for that. All of the money that comes from there goes straight back into the YouTube channel. Hey there guys, I'm just getting to the stage now in this drawing where I'm actually going to start drawing the hair, and I thought this would be a really good tutorial and quick time to just have a look at how we do this hair. So if I go back to my reference image now, so you can see that in the reference image here what we've got is we've got some white and grey African style curly, very tight curly hair with some darker areas in there. So in order to do this I'm going to use two things. I'm going to use a 2B pencil and I'm going to use a very soft brush, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to start very lightly, and I'm just going to do some very loose, very free-flowing, not regimented at all, tight circles. Making sure that this pencil is absolutely sharp. We don't want a blunt end, and I'm constantly moving this pencil around in my hand to make sure that I'm always using the sharp area, and I'm always using a new fresh piece of graphite every few strokes. So just getting this very, like we say, very tight knit, almost random circular shape to the hair. And then what we're going to do is we're going to, when we've got enough graphite on there, we're just going to start to brush it around slightly, because the one thing to remember when you're trying to draw any light coloured hair is you're never going to be able to represent any of the hairs that are lighter in colour with a pencil stroke. We're going to actually take some of the value out with an eraser, either a kneaded eraser or a mono 0 eraser, which is what I've got here. So this is a mono 0 eraser. It's retractable, and it's very good for getting fine details and fine edges. So we're going to do that, but we need to get enough graphite on the page to start with. So we're doing that with, like I say, the 2B pencil, and I'm pressing on very lightly. So we don't want to be pressing on too hard, because like I say, we need to be able to remove some of the graphite slightly later on. It makes it look much more realistic when we've got whiter areas within the darker areas. So what we're actually looking at doing here is we're trying to almost draw the spaces that are in between the hairs, rather than the actual hairs themselves. Now, if I was doing an afro or some sort of very tight curled hair that was darker, that was black, then obviously I would be trying to recreate some of the hairs themselves. But even if you look at a reference image where somebody has very dark hair, there are still light areas in there. So this idea of trying to take out graphite to represent the lighter areas still applies even in the darkest of subjects. So I'm going to go through this this whole head really, looking for those darker areas, and then we're going to look to take some of the highlighted areas out. So what I'm going to do is I'll quickly show you how I'm brushing it. So just taking my soft brush, and I'm just going to lightly brush the graphite, being very careful that I'm not brushing too much of this graphite into the face here. As you can see, I've worked very hard to get some of these values, so some of these lighter values here, darker values here, and what I don't want to be doing is ruining those by adding value from the area here that I've got on the brush. So we're just going to be lightly brushing, and then what I'm going to be doing is, if I take my Mono Zero eraser, I'm just going to be very, very lightly just removing some of the graphite in certain areas, and this starts to then represent white or grey hair. So what I'll do is I'll time lapse the next 25 minutes, I guess it's going to be. You'll probably see it all done in about 10 seconds. And I'll have a little check back in with you just to show you how we're progressing. Now, it's not absolutely clear from the video, from the angle that I'm drawing from here, but what I'm doing to create this afro style hair is making very small circular motions on the paper with the 2B pencil, and then I'm brushing the graphite around, which allows me then to take some of the graphite off with an eraser. You can see that I'm using the kneaded eraser and a Mono Zero eraser to get this effect. A white hair or a grey hair can never be represented by a pencil stroke. So in order to draw anything that looks like a blonde hair or a white hair, you have to do that by taking value off of the page. So I'm going in a methodical way all the way over from right to left in these circular motions, and then I'm starting to take out value. What I then do is I go into the darkest areas with the 2B pencil and just reinforce the darker areas in exactly the same way as I do with all of the drawing on everything. So that's the sort of method that I go through. That's the way that I do hair. It's the way that I would do skin. I find the darkest areas, bring those values up, and then take out the value from the lighter areas, whether that's a hair or that's a reflection on a piece of glass or metal. That's exactly how I would draw, whether it's fur, wood. So going through that process and repeating it, going forwards and backwards. But as I'm sure you can see here now, it's starting to look quite realistic. I'm really happy with how it turned out. I think the hair was one of the trickiest parts of the drawing. It's I think it's only the second time that I've drawn afro hair before. But like I say, I'm really happy with it. I'm really happy with the dimensions that I've got on the video, on the picture that you can see on the video. So we're nearing the end now, but I'd just like to thank you for watching the video. Thank you for supporting the YouTube channel. It makes a huge difference to small YouTube channels when you do click on that thumbnail and watch the video. Drop me a comment if there's something you'd like me to draw in later videos. Maybe there's a series of cartoon characters you'd like me to cover. But I'm, like I say, I'm really thankful for you watching. Get me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all the social media platforms, and I'll hopefully see you in the next video. Hey there guys, we're nearing the end of this drawing now, so I just wanted to show you how I finish my drawing off. All of this so far has been done with a 4H, 2H, HB and 2B. There's nothing darker on this picture than a 2B, so what I'm going to use now is my secret weapon, which is a 4B. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start to locate the very darkest areas. And this stage is probably one of my favourite stages because it just it really makes the areas that are the darkest stand out and just adds that extra contrast to places that give you this very realistic look. So everything that I've done so far has been up to a 2B, and as you can see, as this little stubby 4B, I need to get myself a new 4B in this Caran D'ache pencil. I've got some in the cupboard, but I'll endeavour with this one for now. But as you can see straight away, these darkest areas now really start to add fantastic contrast, and we'll just make the drawing pop that little bit more. And it's a real temptation to try and go too dark and to start using the 4B too early on in the drawing. You can get an awful lot of value, as you can see through the process that I've gone through. You can get an awful lot of value out of your 2B and HB just simply by layering. So all of the areas that I've gone through so far has just been a series of layers. So layering the 4B, the 2B and the HB, one after the other, to bring the value up. And then, as you can see with this, if I was going to use a 4B pencil just on the paper itself, it would be extremely grainy. You'd really notice the tooth of the paper. So because I've got so many layers of graphite now on this image, on this drawing, this 4B goes on beautifully smoothly. So again, just locating these darkest areas, and using this 4B. What I'm then going to do is I'm just going to use the rubber just to bring out some highlights again, the eraser, the kneaded eraser, and then finally what I'll do is I will fix the drawing using a spray-on fixative, which is just going to then stop the graphite from moving around too much. And lastly but not least, I'm going to sign the drawing. So I'm going to find a nice area to sign, somewhere that doesn't stand out too much and doesn't take too much emphasis away from the areas of the drawing that I really wanted to get right. The eyes, the mouth, the lips. So again, just finding these darkest areas. We've got a dark area on this neckline here. So I'll time-lapse the rest of the video, but thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the notifications button, which is the little bell icon next to the subscribe button. That way you'll get a notification when I do drop a new video. Like I've said earlier on in the video, and if you've watched any of my other videos, I'm doing daily content at the moment. So I'm doing a lot of cartoon work as well. I know cartoon work's not for everybody, but I enjoy doing cartoon work. So my channel does consist of cartoon stuff as well. Please like, share and comment. Let me know if there's something that you'd like me to do in a future video, something that you're particularly stuck with, or you're not too sure how to draw. Maybe it's some type of hair, or maybe it's a skin texture or any kind of texture. Maybe you'd like to learn how to draw glass or something like that. Let me know. I'm going to time-lapse the rest of this now, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you very much for watching. Okay, so that's the drawing complete. All that we've got to do now is find a place to sign it, and I'm just going to sign just on this collar here. I'm using a 2B pencil. I'm not going to press on too hard, and I'm just going to try and follow the contour of this slightly. So there we go, Nick Rose on the collar. I've just cleaned it up with the kneaded eraser, and like I say, I darkened up some of the areas with the 4B. So that's my Morgan Freeman drawing complete. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've learned something from it. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you on the next video. Hit subscribe, smack the notifications button, follow me on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter.